You're tuned in to Aquarium Drunkard Transmissions. I'm your host, Jason P. Woodbury, and each week I'm joined by a fascinating artist for a strange talk in these strange times. Glad to have you here with us today. My guest this episode is sound healer and Reiki practitioner Devi Mambouka, better known as Masma Dream World. Her latest LP is called Play at Night, and it's out on Northern Spy Records. It's a blend of subterranean bass, spooky backwards mass poetry, and shifting nocturnal soundscapes. Devi took some time out of a recent weekend to speak with me about her global backstory and discuss how DJing influenced her alchemical approach. Together, we played around with the concept of darkness, and I hope you enjoy this talk as much as I enjoyed having it. Speak with you more on the other side. Thanks for being with us here on Aquarium Drunkard Transmissions. Devi, thank you so much for taking the time to join us here on the Aquarium Drunkard Transmissions podcast. I've been listening to the record, and I'm really excited to get to talk with you. I think that's the first air horn we've had on the podcast. That's the first. You did it. You're our first air horn.
Anytime, man.
That's awesome. Well, so the record is really incredible, and it's a really intense and kind of evocative and spooky listen, but it's got a lot of layers. So I wanted to start off by asking you, in the biographical notes, you sort of evoke darkness as sort of something that you wanted to explore and have this record sort of center around Play at Night. So I'm curious, when you use the term, dark, what does that mean to you? What is darkness in the context of the music of Masma Dream World?
Darkness. May darkness prevail over your soul.
Yeah.
I think like the best way to describe this is if you were to close your eyes and imagine yourself walking through a tunnel and then jumping out of the tunnel and ending up in the very beginning of creation. And in that space, there isn't any memory of knowledge. There's just immense possibility. But because the ego cannot see or translate, because the ego depends on past knowledge and memories, so therefore it looks like darkness to the ego. So that's what I'm talking about.
Sort of this space where there is no necessarily beginning or end, it's just existence sort of on its own terms, basically. Is that a fair way to put what you're talking about?
See, the thing is, if we were to describe it, we will still fall under the description of the ego, which cannot comprehend what I'm saying. I think the best way to understand that is to visualize being in a tunnel, which ends up in a space where there is all possibilities, but you are unable to describe it because you don't have any memory of such thing. And so because of that, maybe original fear, because the ego wants to feel secure, then it will be presented to you as darkness.
So with this record, it sounds to me like you're very comfortable with the idea of maybe making somebody uncertain of how they feel, that there's a certain ambiguity to what you're doing. Because there are times listening to the record where I don't, yeah, it creates a space to sort of wander around in sort of the ambiguity of am I a little bit creeped out right now? Am I a little bit like, mystified? Is there a little sense of like, it's an exciting record to listen to, but it is also sort of one where, it feels to me like you're giving the listener a lot of space to feel whatever they feel. But is there sort of a specific thing that you would sort of like people to, at least when they start their listen, kind of find themselves in a certain headspace, or do you just like to leave it up to everybody to their own kind of experience?
I didn't make this record for people.
Did you didn't, not even for yourself?
For myself, sure. But let me put it to you this way. I feel like the record is all about discovering who I am through the impulses that I tend to follow. And I think like the best way to describe that, and I shared this with someone else yesterday, it talks about the story of my father when he was, I don't know the age, right? It's been a long time since I've spoken to him. But I think it was like he was 7 or something. And there were no schools in his village. Like there was no, like, so he found out that, there was like a school about 10 miles away. And in his curiosity, he decided to go there, to walk there. So every day, his mother would pack him the lunch, my grandmother, and he would walk those 10 miles and get there and was not allowed in that classroom. And I don't know if it's because he didn't have any money or maybe the age or whatever it is, but besides him not being allowed in the classroom, he would still stay there and look through the window and learn as much as he could, or whatever it is, his interests that he was satisfying. And he did that for a year. So 10 miles going, 10 miles coming back at a 7-year-old, so 20 miles. Now, it could have been 5 miles, but I don't know, it sounds like a good story like that. Also,
yeah,
my
sure,
father
sure.
told really beautiful stories. So he did that for a year. Like that persistence, that discovery, how do you explain that? Just like this drive to just go and just observe the classroom. And then finally, a year after, he was invited in. Now, if you fast forward his life, he became the ambassador of Gabon. So
right.
This story to me explains why the record exists. It's these things that you do, you can't explain why you're doing it. It's not for validation. It's not for people. It's not even about you anymore. It's just, you gotta just go walk those 20 miles and be there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So you talk about in the notes, you write that the record creates a space that offers, and I'll try to quote directly here, a prime opportunity to awaken one's power source from within. I wonder if you could describe a little bit, what is that power source that you're talking about? And what is the power source? What does being in contact with that sort of feel like for you as an artist?
Power contact? Yeah. I sometimes wonder what Tesla was thinking about when he was making all his crazy ass inventions. Like, who the fuck was talking to him? Like, it was like, yo, my dude, like, we're gonna do free energy. Like, who is that talking to him? And I think that's the best way to describe it. Is Tesla's mind. You know.
Huh.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're that, I mean that's absolutely that's fascinating, right? And obviously Tesla is this sort of, he's the forgotten sort of like genius,
he's the punk rocker of genius. I fucking love this dude. I bet you he was a goth too.
Yeah, Tesla was a goth punk rocker. Is I mean, in a way,
he didn't give a fuck. You know what I'm saying?
Well, right, and because of that, he kind of got excised from the story. He's not part of the official narrative, and so I think for anybody who's been interested in alternate narratives and other ways of thinking, all that stuff, he's one of the patron saints of forgotten genius. So I think that it seems that It feels to me like with this record, it's got this intensity to it that does feel a little bit otherworldly. Would you say, you've already mentioned that he was a goth. Would you say that it seems to me like you're not uncomfortable sort of playing with the thematic tool of like spookiness or foreboding or disease? Is that part of darkness too, in the way that you sort of see it, the sort of like the shadow side of things, where things can be a little bit spooky? I mean, if somebody tells you listening to this record creeps me out, how does that make you feel?
I don't give a fuck how they feel about it. Not because I don't like the people that listen to my music. It's just that I don't need any validation from you. I don't need you to tell me or put that to be my responsibility because I made you feel a certain way because you listen to my music. Well, turn it off. But
sure.
The spookiness, again, this is all in a Western framework. And I'm not interested in that. So
right.
I think the best way to describe this is, that moment where you're trying to reason out the shit out of your life. You're sitting there and shit's fucked up. And then you get this energy out of nowhere. It can be anger. It can be the next step of it. But it feels a little maddening. That space is what I enjoy.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Obviously, when we talk about things like spookiness, or when we talk about, like what you're saying, to the Western ear, these sounds might feel like they imply some sort of unknown or some other, which isn't, that's like all wrapped up in a lot of stuff. But your music draws from all over the place. It does draw from like certain elements of, let's say, industrial or beat music, and then it does draw from folk elements, and it draws from abstract elements and all this stuff.
I've never heard that before. No.
Well, I guess I don't mean like Peter, Paul, and Mary or something like that.
Cool.
I guess I mean, sort of like certain ritualistic kind of music, devotional music, religious music from all around the world, So all of that is wrapped up in there, but it also has this other thing that just feels so enveloping, and there's a certain, I was interested in your relationship to the idea of power with this record, because the record has a power. It has a sort of like overpowering quality where to listen to this, I guess you could listen to this and read a book if you wanted, or you could listen to this and do whatever, but the experience that has made the most sense for me is putting it on and focusing on it. You know what I mean? Because it doesn't really work in a passive setting as much for me. I need to sort of be paying attention to it. And it almost feels like it kind of oozes out of the speakers in this way that necessitates paying very close attention to it. And I'm just curious, when you're in the studio making this stuff and you're mixing it and you're in the process of trying to figure out what it's going to sound like as it comes out of the speakers, you know, you're not making it for a specific listener. You're making it for yourself, or you're making it because you just have to make it, you know? But do you think about, are you focused on the headspace that it puts you in primarily when you're in the process, when you're in the studio? Like how do you capture do you have to have a vibe in the studio, I guess is what I'm trying to get at?
Coffee. I think what you mean with the power thing is, number one, power can be described in so many different ways, but I think that maybe what's coming up for you is that whatever it is that you need to feel the power, you will get, because there's space for creation, because we're talking about this space of the unknown. So whatever you need, you'll get out of this album. So that would make sense, that will feel powerful to you. As far as if there's a mood that created it, I mean the track, I think the best way to describe this is something I read, this book called The Resonance Key, which I fucking love. Like, I love what I read there. And it was talking about recording and how when you are recording music or anything with, you know, electronically, or you capturing with microphone, is that these frequencies are spirits. These frequencies are like the elementals, are, you know, like the spirit of the little tiny flower, those little spirits. That's what those frequencies are. And so when you record them, you trap them in the record. And when you play them, they come alive. So maybe that's what you're noticing, is that there are literally tiny little spirits coming out of your speakers.
Yeah, I love the sound of that. That's a beautiful way to put it. We have had a few interactions back and forth via social media, and I think I'm correct when I
sliding in your DM, like, what up, Jason? How you doing?
Exactly. And one of the things we talked about was Twin Peaks and David Lynch, and on Back Home. Am I hearing some backwards vocals there? Some vocals that have been treated. You don't have to spoil the mystery of what I'm hearing. Let me rephrase. Is there a little bit of an invocation of that sort of sound design interest on that song for you?
Okay. There was a story in the 90s that I was so fascinated about. I was like, this is fucking insane. I love this so much. And I was really obsessed with it when most people were afraid of it. And I think it was the Hotel California record where they say, if you played it in backward, you will hear satanic chants.
Yeah.
And ever since I heard that, it's been an obsession of mine. And so, yes, you can play all of my songs in backwards and you'll get to hear actually what the fuck I'm saying.
That's such a cool thing to do. So you liked the idea of backwards masking. You weren't afraid of that.
No, I mean, listen, we have so much technology. Why the fuck not? Also, who gives a fuck about what I'm saying? Because even if whatever I'm telling you right now, there is no way for you to understand what I'm saying. It's only going to go through the way you interpret my truth. And that becomes your own truth
Sure.
and your own perspective. That's the reason why I have no interest in making music for others, because if I do that, I'm not going to be authentic. And then second of all is that my truth, it doesn't have to be everyone's truth. Who actually, matter of fact, no one is right and no one is wrong. And so I'm not really a preachy person. I don't care about preaching. I just want to know that I have this, this blood suit that I carry around called my body. And many, this society celebrates, more positive, light, pop music or whatnot. Because I can do whatever I want, I decide to play with the darkness. No one is really enjoying that. I'm like, all right, cool. Like more darkness for me, like there's no fucking hell or heaven, in my understanding. Right. So why the fuck not? I'm not afraid of it. So I'll play in there. I'll hang out in there. Yeah.
What do you like about playing in that sort of space? What does it let you do that, like, let's say a 3-minute pop song or whatever wouldn't give you the same access to? What do you like about the darkness as an idea?
Well, let's make something clear. It's not about the color. Okay? The best way to describe this would be when you're having, matter of fact, I have a story for you for that. So I went on vacation with my partner. What was it? St. Croix? Yeah, St. Croix. And it's like burning hot, like it's tropical weather, whatever. So I'm sitting there, and all of a sudden I go into a trance, and I hear a whole entire. I see a whole entire civilization that used to live exactly where we were. And it's almost like I was transported into another dimension. And I saw how there was a ritual between the whale people. So whale people were like whales from the ocean coming in and mating with the women of that clan. And then they will have this like whale people mixed. So they would do this like on the full moon or whatnot. And, I look at my partner, I'm like, hey, so this is what I just saw. He's like, what the fuck you talking about? Like, so fast forward, I don't know, 4 or 5 years, this summer, I get the privilege to have a wonderful conversation with neighbors, and I tell them about the whale people in my story. And all of a sudden she goes, holy shit, there's a similar story, actually a folklore in South America of dolphin people that would mate. And I wasn't aware of that folklore. Like I had no idea. So yeah. To me, that's the exploration of just trusting when you are having this moment, which may make you feel like you're crazy.
Is that you should just trust in what you're experiencing, yeah. And maybe it'll make sense some other time. Maybe it won't ever make sense, but whatever, that's exactly. All fine. I'd love to ask you a little bit about your childhood. As you mentioned, your father was a Gabonese ambassador, and your mom was from Singapore. Where did you spend the first parts of your childhood?
In Gabon. I like it how people just graze over my mom's background. Everyone's so interested in Gabon.
Oh, well. So what brought your mom there?
Oh. So my father was the ambassador of Gabon, and his job was to go around and open embassies and do stuff that ambassadors do. And the way my mom describes it is her friend invited her to, she was like, oh, there's these African diplomats. I know, one of them is my friend, come with me and, let's have, whatever, like girlfriends, like meeting dudes or whatever, hey, all excited, like, ooh, this is exotic. Like, it's like, welcome to America, sure. You know what I mean? And My mom talks about the moment when she walks into the Shangri-La Hotel, which, by the way, is one of my favorite hotels. And she walks in and she's like describing how she was looking or whatever. And she passes by my father. And my father looks at her like she was like so, you know what I mean? Like she was like this ball of like light. And my mom is hot, okay? And that's how they met, through, because of Auntie Sarah. It was like, okay, let's go. And not going into the details why, she just like randomly decided to go back with him. Like he was like, well, I'm leaving in a week. You want to come to Africa? And she was like, yeah, okay. And then she told my grandfather that she was going to Japan. And and a week later, they're calling her. She's in Africa, right? They're calling it like, so where are you? She's like, I don't know. There are no street numbers. Like, I can't see the street numbers here. It's just I'm just in a mansion somewhere in Africa. And they're like, what the fuck? You went to Africa?
Wow.
So my mom doesn't give a fuck. Like she just goes with the flow. And I guess maybe this is where I got it from.
Yeah. So what brought your family to New York and the Bronx later when you were maybe early teen years, right?
What brought me here is not a fun story. But I'm not a victim. So it's just the exploration of myself in this human form that created a story such as, my father dying from cancer, my mother having to leave right away because her job wasn't stable anymore. And as soon as my father was kind of like the security blanket, although they were not together anymore. And she had to rush here, and she was already married to this dude from Cameroon, which is the demon in my story, right? He's the one that literally wanted to destroy my life, like. But at the same time, is that I wouldn't be who the fuck I am if it wasn't for a crazy ass stepfather. So,
right.
So that's how we came here, and then like I think a year later, my father passed away. And then like 3 days later was 9/11. It was like, or 9/11, and then my father passed away. Yeah.
God, that's a heavy stretch of time right there for sure.
Yeah.
The bio talks about how you listen to music, it cites Mariah Carey, Toni Braxton, artists like that. And I'm curious, were you listening to a specific radio station, or were you more of a tape person or CDs, or what? How did you first kind of was that some of the first music that you were into, or were you already a music head by the time you were in the Bronx?
You say tape, and all I can imagine, when you wanted to like rewind the tape and then your finger got stuck and it fucking hurt? Like that's what I just like got that image. Like, that thing, like just...
Oh, I know exactly what you're talking about. I've even had to get like stuck in
what
there.
What the fuck? Yeah. Like, and then you'll use like the pencil or whatever. Like, anyways.
Right.
Toni Braxton and Mariah Carey. I mean, who doesn't like Toni Braxton and Mariah Carey? I mean, their vocal stylings is just like, don't leave me on this. Like it's all in the notes, like.
Yeah. You
know what I mean? Like it's like,
I love it. Yeah.
Anyway, so how did I get into Toni Braxton and Mariah Carey? My sister. My father had many wives and children. So my half sister, Manu, she was obsessed with Toni Braxton and Mariah Carey. And actually a lot of parts in Africa, like hip hop, R&B, all that stuff, like, was all what we listened to in the 90s, like the Fugees, like, you know what I mean? Like that, actually the Fugees, the tape, that was the first tape I've ever bought. Fucking love Lauryn Hill.
Yeah.
So it's just like what my sister listened to, what everybody else listened to. I wish somebody fucking gave me a tape of The Cure or some shit that I would actually be into, but this is who I was exposed to. But the reason why it became an influence to me is because my sister told me that I couldn't sing. Because, like, we will hang out and then she'll be playing Mariah Carey and I'll be in the back like, ah! You know what I mean? And she's like, no. And so, so I was like, okay, so that just means that I have to do it. I'm a little like annoying little sister. Like, I'm going to learn Mariah Carey's song and I'm going to prove to you that my ass knows how to sing. So I practiced with my best friends, which were the trees at the back of our house. And every day I will be screaming back there. I'll be screaming the shit out of one of the Mariah Carey song and learning it. And at some point, my friends and I felt that I was ready. Matter of fact, it was a group of parrots that came through, and they were like, "Yo, you're ready, son. You're ready to go out there and do your thing, girl." So I told my mom, I said, "Okay, so listen, we got to go to the karaoke because I got some shit that I got to sing for y'all, and like I'm excited." So it's like a year later, right? We get in there and like I'm singing this Mariah Carey song and my mom looks over to my sister and she goes, "Did you know she knew how to sing?" And my sister is like, "Who the fuck knows with this little like demon child that you have?" Which, by the way, she's the one who made me afraid of my own darkness. She broke it down one day with trying to tell me about Jesus and shit because she saw me in my bedroom. I was meditating with the lights off. Like I was like, 7 or something. I'm like in the dark, like just like fucking meditating. I don't remember. And she came in and she fucking slapped the shit out of me. Sorry, Manu, I'm throwing you under the bus here. She slapped the shit out of me. And so I think that this is what I've always been looking for. Finding for. So if I were to describe Play at Night, would be finding that moment of being in a space where you don't even realize what you're doing. Like I didn't know I was meditating in the dark. Honestly, I don't even know how I ended up there. Mm-hmm. Right? Who the fuck else know that what I was doing? My sister giving me that slap, was like, "Oh, I'm in the dark room meditating." I guess that looks weird to some, So I like that's what Play at Night is. It's just me wanting to be in my own darkness, and it just so happened that it's in a record form. And like I'm surprised having this conversation to you about Play at Night or the music. I'm like, who the fuck made that song again? Like I'm like, I'm like, what
somebody
song
else made
about?
it. Yeah, it's like, yeah.
And now, a word from our sponsor. Creators, are you tired of being paid in clicks and likes? Social media and streaming platforms help people find your work, but getting you paid is another story. Patreon is built for creators, not advertisers. Using it, you can develop a sustainable income source by offering a recurring membership to your fans. In turn, they'll get access to your exclusive community, premium content, and a chance to become active participants in the work they love. The creative system is broken. Sign up on patreon.com now. That's patreon.com and start building the steady income stream you deserve. And now, back to Transmissions.
Well, so when did you find music that was like, obviously Mariah and Toni Braxton and R&B and songwriters like that, there's lots of thematic complexity and it's not just pop music that's easy to digest. There's darkness in that too. But when did you find music that was more suited to the sort of inner world that you had? Stuff like The Cure or goth music. Was that how did you get into that stuff?
DJ Jess, may he rest in peace. DJ Jess.
Okay, what's the story with them?
DJ Jess was this force when it came to New York nightlife. He had a night at Webster Hall, and he would play like The Cure. He would play like all of the stuff that I fucking miss, you know. Mm-hmm. And I remember the first time I heard the Smiths, and I was like, and then I heard Susie and the Benchies, and I was like, and I was like in the club, and I'm just like dancing, and I'm just like, you know, when like, it's almost, you know what, it's almost like someone adopted me and put me in a different family, you know? And I mean, my childhood in Gabon and the music and the magic, all this, it was pretty dark, and I love it, wonderful. But like, I was like, this is me. Like, this is what the, like, I was mad. I was almost mad. Like, they hit that shit from me.
Yeah. How old were you when you heard that stuff in the club? Are we talking?
I wasn't 21 yet, teens, man. 20? No, I was like,
yeah.
I had to be 20 or some shit. I had to be 20.
Yeah.
Maybe even younger. And I was so mad, yo. And I just ate that shit up.
Yeah. When did the bio also mentions that you spent a lot of time at Tower Records. Was that your favorite record store at one point?
Yeah, it was in Union Square, and I didn't want to go home, because if I went home, that means that I had to deal with my stepdad, and that wasn't safe. So I would, after school, just be like, fuck it, let me go to Tower Records. And I had this like yearning to stay really close to my African roots. So I would go to the world music section, and I just ate that shit up. That's how, I found out about Zap Mama, Amel Larrier, I went down that Enigma, like I went down that path.
Oh, yeah.
You know what? I was listening to Enigma a few days ago. I was like, yo, son, like, I can see the inspiration here, like unconsciously, because I listen to the shit. And you know what I loved about listening to Enigma, especially a certain song? It used to scare the crap out of like my family. So I would blast that shit up and be like, I am evil. I've already told your asses that I am evil, and that's okay too. Yeah.
So you were able to play. I mean, Enigma, when you think about it, it's like it is interesting that it's scary, but I mean, it's just really beautiful too, and interesting and complex. So, but you weren't afraid. Was that your way of like kind of signaling to your family, hey, I'm doing my own thing over here?
Yeah, it's like, every teenager goes through their little like rebellious. I think I don't know. I'm always rebellious, anyways.
When did you start DJing?
Officially, like when I started making money?
Sure. When you started making money, sure. When did you first start? But also, when did you first start like just learning to DJ and and how did that get started?
I think it just started with like, back in the day when like you listen to the radio and then you have your cassette tape and you like you record your favorite show and you make mixtapes with like the radio station. I was already doing that shit. Like I was already doing that because I love music. So I think this would be like the beginning of it. As far as like professionally, I remember this is a very New York thing actually, because I waltzed into in this club, and I see this DJ dude doing his thing, blah, blah, blah. And I'm looking at him and I'm like, yo, I'm thinking about being a DJ too, yo. You know, like just randomly. Like I was like, I think I'm going to be a DJ. You know, I was like, how much you make anyways a night?
Sure.
You know, like that's super New Yorker. Like you're like, how much you make a night? You know, how much you making?
Yeah.
He was like $500, $500. I'm like, fuck yeah, I'm going to be a fucking DJ, bro. Like,
yeah, right.
and then
that sounds good.
That sounds good. That sounds like a good ass job. Like I want that job, you know? And then he, you know, he taught me. Then, you know, I mean, kind of like went there all the time being like, when are you teaching me how to DJ, brah? You know? It's very like, I want to DJ.
I think that, you know, becoming the magician from the new record implies that you're comfortable, I think, with some esoteric or occult ideas, and that's something that you like to play with. I was thinking about DJing, and, you know, it's a weird thing because you kind of are casting a spell as a DJ, right? You know, you're harnessing the power of somebody's art, you know, music that either you recorded or that somebody else recorded. You're contextualizing it in new and novel ways. You're mixing it with other people's art. And you are truly sort of controlling the energy of a room as a DJ. You know, you can slow it down, you can speed it up, you can make things, you know, you have a lot of control as a DJ. So I'm curious if when you're thinking about making music, you know, does it employ any of the same muscle memory that DJing does in terms of like vibe control or the feel? You know, I mean, how important was DJing in terms of you understanding how you like to present your art?
There's never another time where an individual is not influencing their environment. So DJ is you just so happen to be on the stage and have a bunch of music that does so. But everyone in their little own world bubble is influencing their energy. So you just are, you know, creating like a possibility where you could be in a place where you are being entrained to feel a certain way, like DJ Jess, you know, getting to my heart space, you know. But like in the beginning, I was saying like when I make the music, it's not really I'm not being like the architect of like some sort of like vibe I want to give you, because that's not what I'm interested in. Does subconsciously do I like to have certain aesthetics? Yeah, I like certain aesthetics, so maybe that's what's happening. But consciously deciding to create, you know, a world that will affect other people? No, I don't think so.
When you were DJing though, I mean, how often did you sort of feel that sense of well, we've already talked about power a little bit, but that sense of control over the way things felt? Like obviously, like you said, we're all doing that on sometimes macro levels where we aren't even aware that we're doing it. But when you're on stage, you have to be aware of what's happening in the room around you. You know, did you read the crowd in a way, or how did it work?
No, I'm just laughing because it's like DJ 101, read the crowd.
Well, yeah, exactly.
You know, if I was reading so when it comes to DJing, I had a really good training, I would say, because I was able to actually make a living out of DJing. Like I actually paid my fucking bills with DJing. Very grateful for that. But the reason why I didn't continue in DJing is because I wasn't really interested in that, because I was always in my own world. And it was more like, this is my fucking world. Y'all can feel it or not. I was never doing anything to others. But my energy is just like, the whole time I was like, what else do I want to fucking hear? What else do I want to hear? Oh, this, oh, that, oh, this, oh, that. Like I wanted to party. So that was contagious to the room. I was in that state already of having so much fun. And it almost at some point is like, I didn't see the people around me anymore.
Mm-hmm. You were in your zone.
That booth.
And they were.
It's like the bartender, you know what I mean? Like you have the bar like separating you and the mass, and it's your world. You create your damn world. You're gonna wait 15 minutes because you're yelling too much for that drink.
Right. When it comes down to that idea of creating your own world, I mean, does that tie into? I know that you study Reiki, right? And is that part of a larger field of practice for you? Do you dabble in a lot of things, or how does your sort of focus work when it comes to things like, energy work in general?
Well, Reiki found me, like sound healing found me. Reiki, I don't. Listen, Reiki is just a label of something that everybody has anyways. Okay. I'm not saying that it's not like Roxy Swinehart would say, it's a great permission slip for you to get in touch with the energies which flows. It's because it can be, that sort of energy exists in other practices not called Reiki. This is just like a branded idea. Whether the person that came across that first energy, at the time they didn't talk about brands, but that's a branded idea to me. So I was, it found me in a sense where I was heartbroken, and I ran away to Connecticut, which is actually where I wrote my EP. That's where all the inspiration started coming in, was because of Reiki. Reiki opened this permission space for me to remember the magic that I was having with trees, and to trust those energies. But right now, Reiki is just kind of like breathing for me. It's just like Reiki just means I am in touch with the energies that flows within me. If I were to put on my ego hat for a second here, I study sound therapy. So that's maybe what's coming through, like I have a knowledge of what frequencies does what, blah, 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 blah.
How did you become interested in that sort of stuff? And more specifically, what was the bridge like from, let's say, DJing to like sound therapy?
DJ to sound therapy. Well, before sound therapy, there was Masma Dream World. So Masma Dream World is what, as I was creating the EP or whatnot, I started to dive more into that energy flow, that Reiki, whatever thing that opened up to of other possibilities. And yes, I do love the occult because it's fun stories. And so it's kind of like being in total trust, and then having like little breadcrumbs along the way, which just is like, okay, this is what I'm going to do now. This is what I'm going to do now. And it so happened to happen that like most of those things are either because there's a heartbreak, or my mom got shot, or that I get an abortion, or or I have a dream about it. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's just like all these little things happening in my life are just like always at the end of a tragedy for me, there's always a light. So
that stuff, it's
connected. Like it's because for me to be like chronologically like explain this to you, it's just like it wouldn't make any sense, because it's just like life is happening and I just end up in places.
Yeah. And so does having this record out, what does that feel like? what's it like to release a record in this year where all of the normal things that we would be doing around a record, i.e. touring or who knows what, going to radio stations and so, I mean, obviously we can do things like this, but what's it like putting a record out in this year for you?
It's the perfect explanation of embracing the unknown.
Right, because there's no shortage of the unknown this year. I think that we all are realizing that we can't say what's going to happen next week, let alone, 4 months from now, 5 months from now. So, yeah, so you feel kind of comfortable with this record existing as a reminder that the unknown is there waiting for us to just exist in it?
I think that this year is just that we all have 20/20 vision now. That we actually are seeing clearly what's going on. And I've been seeing clearly for a little while.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
I recorded this record when 2020 wasn't there. And it's kind of like being on the edge of the unknown, being on the edge of not knowing what next is going to happen. It's kind of a place where I'm at naturally. So to me, I almost felt like, holy shit, that make like it honestly, like I call up Northern Spire. I was like, now we're releasing this. This is the perfect year to release this album. And why? Because then when there was so much noise before, I don't know how the album was going to be received compared to right now when there's less noise. It's almost like it's the album of 2020 in a sense, because it's all about the unknown. Not to sound cocky or anything like that. It's just that it gives you permission to jump in the pool of the unknown. Like we were talking about in the beginning of our conversation, walking down the tunnel and jumping into infinity.
Yeah. I'd like to kind of wrap up. I'd love to ask a little bit about just in general, what have you been listening to lately? I'm really curious. I feel like that's normally a little bit of a boring question, but at the same time this year it feels so much more interesting because people are unplugged from the sort of cycles of like, I have to pay attention to this new record that is everybody's just listening to whatever they really are drawn most closely to. So what have you been listening to lately?
I love what Prince once said about when someone asked him that question. He was like, I make music, therefore I don't listen to it.
Oh, whoa, yeah. That's a good point.
No, I've been listening to the Melvins, man. Like Melvins, Moondog, a lot of fucking Moondog. Moondog is the fucking bomb, man. Like, it's like every time I hear Moondog, with all this, to me, I just hear like a doomy track in my head. Like I hear it and it's just like Melvins and Moondog, it's just like has the same kind of like tension, breath, intensity, focus, very precise type of sound that I really, really enjoy.
Yeah. And he feels intrinsically New York as well, in terms of there's this tapped into this like heavy energy of like this place with so many people from so many places. The Viking of 6th Avenue. Exactly. So yeah, I guess just to close, I'd love to ask a little bit about the visual presentation of this album. I was looking through sort of all the art and everything, and it feels to me, well, you know what? I'm afraid that I'm going to ask you something that you've already answered, which is to say, when I look at it, everything is blurry and a little bit like you have to look in a certain, you have to kind of like relax your eyes to sort of take in the image, because it feels like there's a lot of the album cover specifically, you know, there's this motion to it. And unlike a still photo of you, there's that sense of the unknown in the album art. What was the photo session like? And were you going for something? Did you have a vision of what the album cover looked like before you all made it? No.
Yeah.
No.
Josh Lee is a fucking genius, number one. Oh. It's kind of crazy because we met during the EP release. And Josh, he came up to me and was like, yo, I fucking love your music, bro. Like, I feel like you are playing music that resonates within my soul. And I was like, your fucking pictures do the same for me. So it's kind of like I can't speak for him, but I know I'm totally in love with him, and especially his soul. Like, it's just, who the fuck has an eye like that, you know? That I know that's alive, that's a friend of mine. Obviously, there's plenty of people with beautiful eyes. Beautiful eyes, beautiful eyes. And I had Aaron, Mad Black Soul, and they are this amazing, like, number one, the way they're a movement artist. But not only are they a movement artist, they also understand how to put materials together to create an effect. So I was styled by Aaron. And so it was kind of like, hey, what's up? I'm gonna do a bunch of pictures. You know, it's COVID. I have an idea. Let's see what the fuck happens. And then we got there and we just shot it. But I guess it's again what we're talking about with the story with the dolphin people and the whale people. It's just that something happens, you just trust in it, and then you just follow the breadcrumbs, and then it becomes that. And then we saw the pictures and we were like, holy moly, this is cool. And my partner, Deafness, you know, like the not the photo itself, but the design of the record, like, you know, like the type font and everything, and pretty much was like this picture, like chose a picture, was like, his they're also like a photo researcher. Their eyes is just a beautiful eye too, and it was just like, that's the photo that's the one, you know. Yeah.
And you saw it and you agreed, or you saw it and you were like, sounds good, I'll let you make that decision? How did that particular image make you feel when you saw
it? You know what that reminds me of? I grew up in a haunted house, and sometimes I would be doing my homework, and then I would look up and there would be like a running someone in white, or a woman in white running. And it was just like, it's just like this, like, it's like the peripheral. It's like this, like, you can't see the form, but you just see the motion. It's just like that sweep of things, but you know it's there. You've seen it. And it's just pure energy that is trying to find form into space. And when I saw that picture, it reminded me of that one of my favorite ghosts. Actually, my father was like, don't worry about her. She's here to protect us.
Wow. So you had a helpful relationship with that particular ghost.
No, I never talked to her, but she used to run. I used to be like, yo, son, I'm going to put some like needles on the floor so like you can like, because she's running all over the fucking place. Like, who the fuck invited you into this house and you think you could just run around and shit? You know what I'm saying? Like, that's why I went up to my father. I was like, what's going on with this ghost, man? This ghost is just running around thinking she doesn't even pay rent and she's running around this place. Right. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, that's an incredible
Hey, listen,
story.
if you got ghosts in your house, you call me. I will curse the shit out of those ghosts and get them out.
Okay, I have been concerned that there might be something going on in my house. We've got some weird electrical stuff going on. So but that probably just means we need to have an electrician out, to be honest. But anyway, I'll keep you posted
Good.
on that.
Who are you gonna call?
I'm gonna call you, apparently. Devi, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with me and to explain an album that doesn't want to be explained. I appreciate it.
Doesn't need explanation.
That's right. I appreciate, but I appreciate talking nonetheless. So thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to the Aquarium Drunkard Transmissions podcast. I'm your host, Jason P. Woodbury. I write and produce the show. Our audio is edited by Andrew Horton. Michael Krasner records supplemental audio. Jonathan Mark Walls does video production. Art by D. Norson and Heavy Hymns. Executive producer and guru, Justin Gage. If you enjoyed our show, please share it with a friend. Let them know they can get it wherever they listen to podcasts and direct from Aquarium Drunkard. If you want to take your support a step further, check us out over on Patreon. Transmissions airs every Wednesday with bonus drops when we feel like it. We'll be back next week with another strange talk for these strange times.